The snow fell in thick curtains across the ruined plaza, transforming the skeletal remains of buildings into ghostly monuments. Myra huddled against a collapsed wall, her daughter pressed against her chest beneath the tattered remains of what had once been a coat. The child, barely 6 cycles old, had stopped shivering an hour ago, which terrified Myra more than the cold itself. The Vacrine occupation had stripped their world bare. What the invaders hadn't taken for themselves, they destroyed out of spite. Food was a memory, shelter was a fantasy, and warmth? Warmth was the cruelest joke of all. Mira's people, the Rennie, had evolved on a temperate world. Their slender frames and fine-boned structure made them scholars, artists, diplomats. Not survivors. Certainly not warriors. When the Vacrine arrived with their warships and their hunger for conquest, resistance had lasted 3 days. Now, in the 6th month of occupation, Myra watched her daughter's lips turn blue and felt something break inside her that had nothing to do with ribs or bones. The Vacrine soldiers made their rounds as dusk approached. They moved in pairs, weapons slung casually over broad shoulders, breath misting in the freezing air. They wore thermal suits that kept them comfortable, while the conquered froze. Myra had seen what desperation drove others to do. She'd watched mothers and fathers debase themselves for scraps, for warmth, for the temporary mercy of an occupier's whim. She'd sworn she would die before making such choices, but that was before her daughter stopped shivering. "Please," Myra called out, her voice cracking. 2 Vacrine soldiers paused, their compound eyes rotating toward her. "Please, just a blanket. Anything warm." The taller soldier laughed, the sound buzzing through his translator. "You have nothing we want, Rennie." Myra's arms tightened around her daughter. The child's breathing came shallow and slow. "Hours, maybe. Maybe less. I'll do anything," Myra whispered. "Anything you want. Just one night with me. Just give her something warm first." The soldiers exchanged glances. The shorter one tilted his head, considering. "Your spawn, too. Both of you. 3 nights. She's a child. Then you have nothing to bargain with." They started to walk away. Myra felt reality fracture. This was the moment. The moment where she became something else, something she wouldn't recognize in whatever reflection she might someday see. Her mouth opened to call them back, to agree to horrors she couldn't name. "Hey, back off." The voice came from the shadows, speaking accented but fluent Galactic Standard. The soldiers spun, weapons rising. A figure emerged from the darkened doorway of a collapsed building, hands raised but not empty. One held what looked like a medical scanner. The other held a thermal blanket, silver and compact. The figure was human. Myra had heard of humans. Everyone had, after the Battle of Kelvin's Gate, a species that had no business winning, but did anyway. The species that fought like demons and then wept over enemy corpses. The species the Galactic Council called paradoxical and emotionally unstable, and in whispers, terrifying. This one was male, she thought, though human sexual dimorphism was subtle to Rennie eyes. He wore civilian clothes beneath a battered jacket, and his face held an expression she couldn't quite parse. "Human, this is occupation business," the taller Vacrine growled. "Move along." "Can't do that." The human's voice stayed level, almost conversational. "See, I heard what you just proposed to this lady, and where I come from, we have words for people who suggest things like that. None of them are polite. You threaten us?" "No, I'm telling you to leave, now." The Vacrine soldiers were each twice the human's mass. They were armed. They were occupiers, with all the authority that implied. They looked at each other, then back at the human. Then they left. Myra watched them go, confusion mixing with hypothermia-induced delirium. The human approached slowly, keeping his movements visible and non-threatening. "Hey," he said softly, crouching a few feet away. "My name's David. I'm with the relief mission." We've been trying to get supplies in, but the Vacrine keep blocking the shipments. Can I check on your daughter? Mira's arms wouldn't move. Couldn't move. Some primal part of her brain had locked down, unable to process the sudden shift from despair to this strange intervention. David didn't wait for permission. He unfolded the thermal blanket with practiced efficiency and draped it over both of them. The warmth hit like a physical blow, and Mira gasped. The blanket was powered, generating heat through microcircuits woven into its fabric. She's hypothermic, David muttered, running the scanner over the child. Severe malnutrition, dehydration. But her vitals are stabilizing now that she's warming up. He looked at Myra. You're not much better. When did you last eat? I don't remember. David nodded as if this made perfect sense. He pulled a ration bar from his jacket, broke it in half, and offered her a piece. Start with this. Slow bites. Your stomach's going to fight you, but you need calories. Mira stared at the food. Why? Why what? Why are you helping us? Humans have no stake in this war. The Vacrine haven't threatened your worlds. David's expression shifted to something that looked like old pain. Let me tell you something about humans. We had a period in our history called the World Wars. 2 of them, actually. Millions dead, cities leveled, unimaginable cruelty. You know what the worst part was? Most of the galaxy wasn't even watching. To them, we were just another primitive species killing each other over resources and ideology. He adjusted the blanket around the child, his movements gentle. When we finally made it to the stars, we made a choice. We decided that we'd never ignore suffering just because it wasn't technically our problem. Because we remember what it felt like when everyone else ignored ours. Myra ate the ration bar mechanically, her mind struggling to process this. The Vacrine will punish you if they find out you interfered. Let them try. David smiled. And there was something in that smile that made Mira understand why the soldiers had backed down. Come on, I have a transport hidden 2 blocks from here. We're smuggling refugees out through the eastern checkpoint. The Vacrine guards there are greedy, and we've been bribing them with earth coffee and chocolate. Turns out both are mildly narcotic to Vacrine biochemistry. Where will you take us? First, medical station in orbit. Get you and your daughter checked out, properly fed, warmed up. After that, there's a refugee colony on Waypoint 7. It's not fancy, but it's safe, warm, and the Vacrine aren't there. You can decide what comes next once you're not dying. Myra felt her daughter shift against her chest. The child's eyes actually opened for the first time in days. Mama? I'm here, baby. We're okay. We're going to be okay. David helped them stand, supporting most of their weight. As they moved through the ruined streets, Mira spotted other humans working in the shadows. One distributed thermal blankets. Another handed out ration packs. A third helped an elderly Rennie into a hidden vehicle. How many of you are there? Mira asked. In this city? About 30 volunteers? Across your world? Few thousand. The Galactic Council won't authorize intervention because the Vacrine technically filed proper conquest paperwork. David's voice dripped with disgust. But the Council can't stop individual humans from visiting as tourists. Funny how many of us decided to take vacations to war zones. They reached the transport, a battered civilian cargo hauler that had seen better decades. Inside, 24 other Rennie refugees huddled under thermal blankets. A human woman with a medical kit moved among them, checking vitals and distributing supplies. David settled Mira and her daughter into a corner, making sure they were secure. Trip takes about 3 hours. Laura, there is a doctor well, a veterinarian, technically, but xenophysiology is close enough. She monitor everyone until we get to the station. David, Mira said as he turned to leave. Those soldiers. You were alone, unarmed. They could have killed you. He paused, looking back with an expression she was starting to recognize as quintessentially human, a mixture of stubborn determination and barely suppressed rage. Yeah, they could have. But they'd have to explain to their command why they killed a human aid worker. And that would bring attention, questions, maybe even actual council intervention, because humans make a lot of noise when our people get killed, and we're really annoying about it. You risk yourselves as leverage. We risk ourselves because it's right. David smiled again, softer this time. Besides, I've seen the alternative. I've seen what happens when good people stay safe and comfortable while others suffer. Can't live with that. Most humans can't. The transport rumbled to life. Through the small window, Mira watched the ruined city slide past. Her daughter slept against her chest, truly slept, warm and safe under human-made blankets in a human-stolen transport driven by humans who had no reason to care, except that they were human, and apparently that was reason enough. In the stories her people told, heroes were towering figures of grace and wisdom. They were beings of pure morality who saved others through enlightenment and superior philosophy. Humans weren't any of those things. They were short, violent, emotionally, chaotic, and driven by impulses that defied logic. But they were here. When everyone else filed paperwork and issued statements of concern and debated proper protocols, humans showed up with stolen blankets and smuggled food and absolute refusal to accept suffering as inevitable. Mira held her daughter and felt something she hadn't experienced in months.